proposed hotel project at 79 Bridge Street. This application is filed per section 3.1.4C8, 6.1, 7.10, 9.1, 9.2, 9.4, and 10.4 of the Great Barrington zoning bylaw. A motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. I get used to roll call votes. Lee?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed? Aye. Explanation of the project. Kate?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
For the record, Kate McCormick, McCormick Martin Marcus. I'm here on behalf of 79 Bridge Street LLC. I'm also here with Jim Scalise of SK Design, Crystal and Vijay Mahida and Dave Carpenter. As the development of the former Searles School into the 88-room hotel proceeded, it became clear that modifications were going to be required for a successful project, and those modifications necessitate modifications in the previously granted special permits. Though my client remains committed to completing the 88-room hotel, the principal use for what was permitted, we are proposing to move forward with eliminating the restaurant and also the bar in the restaurant, in the hotel, as well as reducing the space used for conferences from 4,000 to 1,200. So in this modification, there is no changes to the existing site description. There is no changes to our zoning districts. The key component of the permitted use, which is the hotel, still remains unchanged, 88-room hotel. The main school building is still being preserved and renovated to contain and house a majority of the 88 hotel rooms on the property. The former gym will still be replaced with a new structure, so it'll be removed and replaced with a new structure, but it will be a smaller structure. The setback is going to be 10 feet further back from the road, from the Bridge Street facade, which will create a better view of the Searles facade that we're going to preserve. The annex will still be removed, but the plan is to not rebuild the annex structure. And as I stated before, the accessory uses of a restaurant, bar facilities are being proposed to be eliminated. And one of the key reasons for this is my clients decided that it is really important to support the vibrancy of downtown, to push the foot traffic towards the town, to local shops, to local restaurants, as opposed to removing clients and visitors from the downtown area. Because of the reduce of the restaurant, it's hard to operate a 4,000 square foot conference space, so we're proposing a reduction to 1,200, which seems to meet the current needs of the community. By reducing the uses there, we have a reduction of the square footage. When the annex is removed, we'll have space for a few more on-site parking spaces. So we are proposing 101 spaces. The requirement for parking is 1 parking space per room, so 88 is required on the site. So we have plenty of on-site parking. I'll get into some of the requests for modifications, but one is tied to parking. The elimination of the restaurant also enables the front porch to be sized a little smaller, because part of the porch was to be used in conjunction with the restaurant, and again, it will draw the attention into the facade to make it more of a focal point. In a moment, Jim Scalise is going to walk you through the site plans in front of you, but Jim will show you that the project doesn't propose any significant changes to water, sewer, utilities, stormwater management, traffic, fire safety, or emergency access. Since you've seen us the last time on this project, we've been working diligently on a few of the efforts to get this project one step closer to starting the process, and that's removing significant asbestos and lead. As this board is well aware, the school buildings have massive amounts of costly environmental issues, and that's something that we've focused on, and we've removed the asbestos and the lead from the current building. We worked with the Great Barrington Historical Commission. If you remember, it was one of our hurdles to get over was to work kind of in concert with the Historic Commission. We've worked well. We've done the removal and preservation of town history that was originally housed in the Searles School. And we completed a 3-year project with the Riverwalk along the banks of the adjacent Housatonic River. So to accomplish this overall modification, we're seeking modifications to special permit 84815 A, B, C, D, and E. And one of the reasons we have to modify all of them is because the plans were referenced in all of these. So we are requesting to incorporate the new plans that Jim will walk you through, and the new project narrative, and the architectural plans in the new special permit. And we are looking to modify condition 3. Condition 3 referred to an easement between my client and the town. We're still proposing to do this. There was a timing issue with how the condition was written. So it had asked for the easement to be completed prior to getting a demolition or a building permit, and it needs to go to town meeting. So we're requesting that the condition be rewritten to require that happen before a certificate of occupancy, to give us time to get the legal work and the vote done with that. It's been identified on the plans ever since the beginning. We just need to get that done, voted, and recorded to make that final. Condition 11, that's the parking condition, and as I referenced before, we have 101 spaces. Before, because of the hotel use and the restaurant use, there was a requirement to have additional off-site parking. We are requesting that that be eliminated, since we've been able to move all of the parking on-site and have more than is required for the 88-room hotel use. And Jim will identify the parking changes when he goes through the plans. We're also asking for a waiver of the loading space requirement. The project initially would have required 3 loading spaces. During this last special permit process, we reduced it to 1 space for the restaurant use. Without the restaurant use, we do not even need 1 space. We have a loading area, but not a designated space. The planning board has heard this, and they have approved waiving the requirement at the last planning board meeting. In addition to the modification of the special permits outlined, a modification of the order of conditions with the Conservation Commission has been obtained. The order of condition has been extended to May 10th of 2022. And in addition to the waiver request to the planning board, we've been through the planning board site plan review and approval of these modifications. So special permit findings, as the proposed modifications are all related to a reduction in size and scope of an already approved project, my client requests that the board find that none of these modifications have an adverse impact on the social, economic, and community needs that are served by the proposal, traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading, adequacy of utilities and public services, neighborhood character and social structures, impacts on natural environment, and potential impacts on town services, tax base, and employment. With that, I'll send it over to Jim to walk you through the plans, and then I can answer any questions that you may have.
Good evening. For your record, Jim Scalise, engineer with SK Design Group. I'm going to briefly just give you an overview of the site plan, but I am prepared to answer any more detailed questions that you may have. If you take a look, I'll start with the site plan, and then I'll come back to architecture, which is kind of part and parcel to it. But we have been in front of the planning board. They have issued, I believe, a positive recommendation as well as a site plan review for the project. This is the proposed site plan. The changes that have occurred, let me just check one more page here. This shows simply the building, and there's a lot of lines on here, but the black line is the bold black line is the proposed footprint that runs around the proposed building. And these blue lines show, if you can see those, where the existing building is, and these red lines show what the previous approval was. So we got 3 colors on there. I'm sorry for the confusion of it. But simply put, this rear portion of the building disappears. The front gets a little further from the street, and the porch gets narrower. So I think that pretty simply kind of explains what happens to our building footprint. Kate described the uses as it relates to the project, and if I can get to this plan. This is the proposed site plan, and what we've done is, and I've circled these in green, but what we've done is we've created a landscape buffer between ourselves and the Jane Iredale's building, which is an improvement for our abutter. We've moved the dumpster pad, which was right up against the rear of the annex. We've moved that north, a little closer to the street. There's still room for loading and unloading with the vehicle, but it just moves that out and creates a nicer landscaped area. That increase in landscaping actually reduces the amount of impervious cover, so our stormwater system works better. We didn't change it at all because it had been peer reviewed and gone through kind of some process, so we didn't change it. So we actually have it a little oversized now. We were able to add a couple of parking spaces to this row, which raised our number to 101. As Kate said, we have 88 required by zoning. Well, that leaves us at 5 spaces that we promised for the Riverwalk, and we have some compact car spaces and some for electric vehicles. So if you add those all together, we get to the 101. Our loading space, we widened this driveway, which is along the river, a couple of feet, and what it does is with a mountable curb or a mountable edge, it allows that vehicle, our loading area, as Kate called it, it allows us to pull a vehicle up there very infrequently and unload. This is a designated door for loading, unloading. Our egress door is actually on the rear, so it works out pretty nicely. We've moved our accessible parking, we moved that a little bit south, and that's just to coincide with the entrance to the building. I think those are primarily the changes, other than what's not shown is the elimination of the 40 spaces, which was off-site, which were for uses that we no longer have in the project. So as far as process goes, we've been to the Board of Health, the Planning Board, and the Conservation Commission. We've completed them. Landscaping mimics and lighting exactly what was proposed before. Pedestrian access is still along the town-owned sidewalks. Internal circulation, signage unchanged. Utilities, we have the 21-inch sewer pipe that's on our property. We're going to grant an easement for that. Town water, we have town water in Bridge Street. Stormwater, as I said, we have less impervious area. Traffic. The original traffic study that resulted in a conclusion of no impact was actually done for 95 rooms. Through the process, the last time that was reduced to 88. So about 8% there where we're in good shape. And then understand that the conclusions of that are based on a level of service which really remains unchanged in all conditions from the no build to build alternative. So there's some room in an A and B level of service, which are the best two, where there's a little bit of time and what delays are. And in those same ranges, we still fit this project after it's built. So there's really no traffic impact off-site, and parking I've already gone over. So I went through that quickly. If you have any questions, I'm happy to go into them in further detail. Thank you.
Any questions from the board before we? Speak in favor or opposition?
Can I ask a question?
You may ask a question.
Kate said that there would be 88 rooms and a majority of them would be in Searles.
Yes.
Where are the rest?
So some will be in the reconstructed gym building, so that still is used for hotel rooms as well.
How many?
I do not know the exact split between how many are in one building versus the other, but as a total, they all add up to 88 rooms.
I guess I do have a question,
Sure.
as I'm not familiar with the easement process that was supposed to happen in the previous plan. Could that just maybe be explained to me?
Do you wanna hear from me or from your planner?
Whoever feels like sharing, I'll listen to.
Chris, why don't you go ahead?
As Attorney McCormick mentioned, and as you are all familiar, it takes a town meeting vote to accept easements,
Right.
and we haven't done that yet. This is an existing sewer main that's been through the site since the 70s at least, and since it was always town-owned, we never had an easement against ourselves.
I see.
But when the property was sold, all of a sudden, we didn't necessarily have guaranteed access to fix and repair and maintain that sewer main.
Okay.
So the previous permit required an easement. We haven't yet gone to town meeting to accept that easement. And so that's the timing issue.
I see.
We are ready for it, there's nothing stopping us moving it other than a town meeting.
The town main runs parallel to the river right along
Right,
the
I
edge of.
understand that, so the
Okay.
town needs to gain permission, so we'd be I'm sorry,
Yeah, we're
the
just,
easement process is-
we're giving you the right to access that. We're
and
gonna
our
give,
town meeting has to vote,
because it's an interest in property.
ask you for permission.
To accept the
To
easement, I
accept it.
believe, is the legal,
Okay.
because it is an interest in property and the town.
We're not paying any money for it.
Right, so I guess it doesn't.
Why do we have to say yes?
No, when that happens, does it, I guess I'm just wondering, cause I don't understand, great, that is all I needed.
Yeah, it's
To
just,
see
it's,
Chris's shrug was all I needed.
it's an interest in property and it's just a timing thing with when
Right.
the condition was written in good faith. It's more of a balancing the timing. If we get a permit, we don't wanna have to wait to even get a demolition, or
Right,
we'd
That
like to
makes-
fit into,
and that makes sense to me.
Real life
I
timing.
guess I'm curious as to why we would have wanted it one way as opposed to the other.
I think it was just the way that it was worded the first time.
Gotcha.
It wasn't even an issue when we got it, but when we started really examining what needs to be changed,
Right,
we decided we should address that issue at the same time, just to
understood.
tidy up anything.
Structurally, the change in the main building is just the back, is the roof the same, or
The roof is going to, it's going to look the same. If you compare the architectural renderings, I'm unable to find a difference in what the finished product looks like. But in doing some structural analysis, there's some roof replacement that's gonna happen in these areas. And so they're gonna remove and replace some structure, but all of the finishes are gonna be identical.
and it's still not a chain, not branded a chain, it's still,
Well, that, from the beginning, the major difference is our original hotel the goal was to provide a full-service hotel. With the modification and the reduction of the restaurant, the goal is a focused service experience, so a less than a full service because just reduction of the amenities. But we've said this from the beginning, that there's a marketing engine, reservation engine that
Right.
comes with the branding.
right.
So, it will have the brand behind it, but it'll be very similar to our real estate agents that have Sotheby's, that will, the Mahita family's gonna run it. So just like your Berkshire Hathaway and your Sotheby's realtors, it's
The
going
name
to
is
be.
the Great Barrington Hotel, not
the-
Marriott?
The Berkshire, I think we're still going with
Oh, okay.
but yes, it
I know
doesn't,
there's a logo, we were told the last time, right, for whatever the reservation system
yeah,
is.
it's going to be connected just
Right.
like in the past to a reservation
Okay.
engine.
That's not changing.
Every hotel, whether you know it or not, has got a brand associated with it, which drives marketing, drives reservations,
And
and that's the goal.
when will there be dust?
Depending on, approvals and just signing orders, and, I think we wanna make sure that it works with things that are happening with our neighbors on Bridge Street, and also, with timing for tourism, we don't want to make it an eyesore down there, but soon, we're ready. We wouldn't have been taking the time to get to this point unless we were ready to keep the project moving.
So anyone to speak in favor
I
of
just had a
opposition?
question. I was just curious about the construction timeline. So now that it's a smaller, project, how does that affect the length of the actual remediation in the building?
Well, the elimination of the new build in the rear of the site is a fairly substantial reduction. I mean, these types of projects try to have a build out of 10 to 12 months. So I would suggest you'll probably still be in a similar window, probably on the lower side of that, but that's, I don't know that you'll see a significant, but the amount of actual work will be reduced, obviously, but you still need to kind of go through the same steps as you tear down and rebuild that front gymnasium building. So I think there's still gonna be a similar.
And I know there's concern just with, what's happening on Bridge Street in general with construction but, we do have quite a bit of space on property, which, not everyone's afforded, so I think we'll be able to manage and contain the, construction on our site. And that's our goal, to not be in the way.
So will you be actively talking to the other project to see, you know, in terms of the timing, is that, you know,
Yeah, we're
part
gonna
of the
make sure
whole-
we talk to our neighbors, we already have a very good relationship with the Iredale complex, we've, you know, people from the co-op are using our parking, so we already have a synergy and we're not even, at that point yet, so, yeah, our goal is to make it as smooth as possible on all the abutters, all the neighbors, as possible.
Holly, did you want to speak?
Thanks. Holly Hammer, Seacon Crossroad. I'm really concerned about the back wall being torn down. I think this whole project was predicated on the notion that the building would be adaptively reused, turned into a hotel. But at town meeting, I think people thought that the building would be intact, at least the main part of the building. And to me, the building looks its best from the rear. That's what gives it that incredible turn-of-the-century feeling with those windows in place. And I'm worried that if the rear is torn down, that first of all, that the replacement, that you don't really have any guarantees that the replacement will be authentic looking. I know when Sean has to replace bricks in the chimney at Ramsdale Library, he has to get bricks that are as near as possible to the original. There's very tight standards. And I don't see a performance bond here. I don't see any way of enforcing what you hope will happen. And I'm worried that as the project gets going, that pretty soon all the walls will come down because it's easier to build a brand new building than to work within that shell. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that you can do to help guarantee the public that this building eventually will look like an old schoolhouse, and that, you know, that there will be a way to enforce that. Because so often, for instance, the historic 100-year-old oak tree that's on the Mahita property that people said was promised to be taken care of and preserved was overwhelmed with truck and car traffic and parking on its root system. And it wasn't until conservation stepped in and Land Conservancy and the tree committee stepped in and did a work and the conservation had jurisdiction and put a fence around it that we could keep the cars off the root system. And it wasn't until those three groups got together and volunteered a day of labor that we could actually protect the tree. I'm worried that the tree won't be protected also, and I'm just sort of feeling that this sets up the possibility that so happens happens to me at least so often in town, where there's very good intentions and very good agreements, but there's no way of enforcing it. Thanks.
Maybe you'd like to.
I think there's two pieces. One of the main reasons for the back brick coming down is because the annex is there. There's going to be an enormous hole when the annex is removed in that area. And so and structurally, there's concern based on what's there and with the removal of that annex area. And to answer her other question about how can we guarantee that this is done, these plans are very detailed. They call out all sorts of details on what's going to happen, and these plans are going to be incorporated into the special permit. So that's our guarantee, that's our performance. And that's one of the reasons we're back here with some of these things that are small, because they were so identified and detailed the first go around that any modification of the plans is requiring us to be here, so.
Anyone else to speak in favor or opposition? Any other board questions? Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bill? Ed?
Aye.
Aye. Findings.
Move to approve the findings of fact for special permit 896-19 for 79 Bridge Street Realty LLC as submitted and referenced as Exhibit A.
Second. Discussion. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approval denial.
Move in view of the approved findings of fact to approve special permit number 896-19 for 79 Bridge Street Realty LLC to modify special permits 848-15A, B, C, D, and E to reflect proposed modifications to the proposed hotel project at 79 Bridge Street, including a waiver of loading requirements, and to require that the conditions of special permit 848-15 remain in force to the extent they have not yet been satisfied, and to modify special permit 848-15, condition number 3 regarding the sewer easement. So the sewer easement must be granted and recorded prior to certificate of occupancy rather than prior to demolition or building permit, and to delete special permit 848-15, condition 11, requiring off-site parking spaces. Lovely run-on sentence.
I'll second that. Discussion? Lee?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bill? Aye. Ed?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you.